Dagda Yev Augustov Ulcharov is Mission Scaly Bug. Hello and you're welcome. I'm the little storyteller and welcome to the mid-month Patreon Insider. Um as I mentioned and as ever, I am delighted to be able to explore the writing inspired by Ireland's ancient mythology and my relationship with the good God of the Tuatha De Danann on Dagda Moor. I've been doing this work for a number of years, and over in Patreon, I release regular kind of stories inspired by this god and the ancient lore of Ireland. But I also kind of try and take the relationship further, try and explore topics like fatherhood, like masculinity, like spirituality, emotional intelligence, healthy practices, community, hospitality, all of this that falls under these ideals and kind of main connections with Ondagda in the lore, and then kind of try and take it one step further, try and make it accessible or make it just something I can wrap my head around. So I've been writing these stories for years now, and I do audio recordings of them once a month for my patrons as well. So we've hit the mid-month, and so the story I have was actually written in December 2018, and it's called A Happy New Year. The setting for it, it's based on my relationship with the Dagda as someone who at this point had been working for him for a number of years, telling his stories, telling the old lore, but then exploring my own relationship with, as I said, these key topics of divinity, with these key topics of life, really expressed through the lens of divinity, which is for me on Dagda. Um, but it's that kind of relationship of like the end of a year, you know, the end of this kind of calendar year. Now, of course, as a pagan, we celebrate the end of the pagan year at solstice, which is actually the end of October. So by the time you hit to the end of the calendar year in December, it is a couple of months down the line, but there's still a lot of energy that shifts around that time. There's still a lot of people who kind of have celebrations or have kind of focuses outside of themselves or in community or in family. But not everyone has a good relationship with family. Not everyone has close connections with people around them. Some people are very insular, and at that time of the year, it can be very difficult, especially if it's been a difficult year. So I wrote this, as I said, at the end of 2018. And even now, coming back to it, we're now start of 2021. April 2021 is when I'm recording this. It's surprising because I went back into I recorded the audio and I was like, oh yeah, geez, tough year. And then my brain was like, actually, no, that was 2018. That wasn't 2020 with global pandemic and all the rest of it. Okay, so no, it was 2019. So that was no, actually, all of that terrible stuff that happened in 2019 wasn't either. Why, what am I referencing in 2018? So I've gone back and I've gone and had a look at it in 2018. It's not so long ago, but it seems so long ago. We had hurricanes and floods all over the place, all over the world. But some of the more harshly impacted by that was down in Florida, but also in Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico, people were left without support or without aid or without kind of, electricity in some parts of it, without kind of sanitation and clean water in some parts of it for months. You know, there it was the signing of the zero tolerance policy for immigrants, for people kind of trying fleeing difficulty into the states, and that it was the beginning of children being separated from their families, separated from their parents. you know at the same time, we have Syrian refugees fleeing their country in order to kind of get into all across Europe and just trying to get away from the war torn horror that's happening in their land, with like rockets being fired and bombs being dropped on them by Britain, France, and America. So there's all of these things happening which are causing these spillover effects, which are then leading to these knock-on impacts. And it's all of this terrible stuff that we're just doing to ourselves. Like, you might turn around and say, okay, well, Syrians are a different country, but they're still humans. We're all still humans. We may speak a different language, but we're still fucking consuming the same oxygen. We still walk around. We still kind of, you know, hearts still beat to the same rhythm. And I know there's a very, it's a there's an ideology there that can be very troubling. If you try and homogenize everything. that's not even Laura and I have had conversations about me saying you can't homogenize humanity, but we're not talking about removing culture. We're talking about like fundamental baselines of respect and acknowledgement of like human rights and human civil rights. So there's all of that going on. Then there's also pipelines being built and protests going on, like indigenous lands being seized or invaded. There's a whole lot of concerns over gun violence all across the world, particularly in the States. Ireland going through like the run up to the repealing the Eighth Amendment. We'd gone and done that. Um, but we're still then dealing in the aftermath of that, where though the people have had their say and the constitution has been amended, the legal implications, the legalities, the laws have to be ratified, have to be brought into place, and then have to be brought forward. And there's still an ongoing kind of cultural negative around that, like denying people access to healthcare if they have a womb, or if they have any kind of like process or connection with pregnancy in any way, like, their own biological kind of concerns or requirements as a human being are being seconded to the possibility that they may eventually have children or propagate children inside them. So just going back to it, it's like, holy crap, 2018 was not an ideal year, even though 2020 we were all trying to staggering through this pandemic circumstance into 2021. um so the story that I wrote at the time ending out that year uh, was kind of processing some of my own emotional challenge, and the easiest way for me to do that was to kind of separate the conversation, separate the narrative. I am an optimistic person. I do try and see the best in all things, but I also am rather cynical at times, and sometimes it's hard to see the hope, it's hard to see the joy, when there's so much pain that we inflict on ourselves and on other people around us in the world. So that's kind of what the expression of this story is. And it is really just a comfortable narrative. It's me approaching my view of divinity and deity, and him and me having a dialogue about it. So if you're interested, it's over on patreon.com/Dagda. It is available to the audio subscribers there. So I do written stories every month for $5, and then audio stories every month for $10. And there's over 50 or 50, 60 written stories. And there are now coming up on 50 audio stories there as well. So I think you may find something that you enjoy. You may find something that you can engage with. And I do hope you enjoy it. So that's really what it is all about. Again, thank you very, very much. I'm very delighted for the support of the patrons to kind of allow me to do that work, to kind of explore the Ireland's ancient lore and then make it accessible, make it kind of connected, and explore those deeper narratives, especially as a male individual raised with a certain form of masculinity in the 80s in Ireland. There is a lot to be done around questioning those narratives, questioning those emotional intelligence triggers that we're not trained into early on, and trying to move forward with how we can understand and how we can express ourselves comfortably and safely in our world. So anyway, long story ramble. That is what I do. That is where you find me, over at patreon.com/Dagda, or here in YouTube. Do the like, do the subscribe thing. I release the 2 videos every month, supporting the Patreon channel, but I do have plans ongoing for some more content to be brought forward here. So connect with me, check it all out. Scaly Bug over on Facebook, at Dag the Bard in the Instagram world. I'm not very prolific there, but I do like to promote entertaining, interesting things from a native Irish perspective. So, Gaurav Mila Mahaga, thank you very, very much for being with me. And I wish you an amazing, awesome day wherever you are, however you are. Do the thing that makes you smile. Do one thing that makes you smile, because you're worth it. Slán.